Growing up in Rosewood Valley, I often reveled in the warmth of our modest home, surrounded by the vibrant hues of wildflowers and familiar trees that had grown to be embraced by every resident. The sun would spill golden light into our kitchen every morning, but the warmth I treasured the most was the love my mother showered upon me. I was convinced I was her favorite, that every praise and every gift was a thread in the strong tapestry of affection she wove just for me. I remember the way she would beam with pride when I brought home my report card filled with A's and B's. "Oh, Lily, you are so brilliant," she would exclaim, her voice rich with a kind of delight that made my heart swell. I could almost imagine my sibling, who often wandered into the world of their own making, shrugging off the accolades that seemed to pile sky-high before me as if they were too cool for family norms, too cool for me or for anyone. "Mom, look, I got the lead in the school play," I declared one sunny afternoon, fluttering into the kitchen, my heart racing with excitement. The smell of freshly baked cookies mingled with the aroma of brewing coffee. I could see her turn from the sink, her hands still glistening with droplets of water, and there it was, her smile, wide and radiant. "Of course you did, my star. I never doubted for a second," she responded, the delight in her voice wrapping around me like a cozy blanket on a winter night. The other side of the room felt distant. My sibling, sitting at the table, merely raised an unimpressed eyebrow before returning to their sketchbook. Yet I shrugged it off, relishing the moments that danced with laughter, understanding she'd chosen me as her top supporter. Seasons changed, and so did our lives in unexpected ways. The leaves turned from bright greens to warm ambers and fiery reds, and it was as though the universe itself conspired to ensure my favorite season reflected the heightened glow of my achievements. I excelled in school, contributed to community projects, and nurtured friendships that flourished like the garden my mother grew. Life was beautiful, and it felt like me sitting at the center of a vibrant, bustling theater where I was the star. But then came the dreaded news that twisted everything in my heart. She was ill, and the world around me began to spin in a way I had never imagined. I can still feel the chill that washed over me the night the doctor arrived at our home, shrouded in an air of uncertainty. "I am sorry to inform you, she has been diagnosed with a serious illness. We will need to schedule treatments right away." Those words clanged against the walls of my mind, echoing louder than any moment in my life thus far. The room felt smaller, my world suddenly confined within four walls that loomed over me like a storm cloud. I could barely breathe, watching all her light flicker in a washy daze as I choked back my sorrow. Surely, this could not be happening. As the days stretched into weeks, my whole being consumed with worry, I spent countless hours at her bedside, listening to the rhythmic beeping of machines and observing every change etched into her face. It was during those long hours that I saw her start to shift. The gentle glow that once lit up her eyes when I walked in dimmed when my sibling stepped through the door, carrying a sense of rebellious charm that drew her in. I stood frozen, my heart torn, feeling like a ghost haunting the shadows of this newfound connection. How could she? I wondered, my fists clenched at my sides, the ache of betrayal blooming within me. "Hey, Mom," my sibling would say, their voice dripping with that casual sweetness that clung to them like the scent of smoke from the fires they often lit outside. "I brought you that new book you wanted. I picked it up from the library." Each time they arrived, I felt more and more like an outsider, anchored to my spot by a lead weight, while they effortlessly commanded my mother's attention, earning soft smiles from the very person I had thought was devoted solely to me. "You shouldn't be worried about me, Lily. Take care of Mom," they would say, their attitude deceptively carefree, making it seem like our roles had swapped. I wanted to scream, to shake my fist at the universe that had flipped our lives upside down. Was I meant to be the one sitting quietly by, watching as my sibling received all the care and support I had once basked in? In my mind, a whirlwind of questions thrummed with restless energy. What had I ever done wrong? Had I missed the signs that our bond was far weaker than I had believed? Sitting alone in my darkened thoughts, I could hear the memories of our past echo, taunting me. "Do you really think you were her favorite?" they would whisper. "While you shone, they shadowed both of you. How blind have you been?" I glanced at her, how fragile she looked lying there, the color drained from her face, making her skin seem translucent, almost ghost-like. "Mom, you are being so strong," I said, forcing a smile onto my face, trying to bridge the gaping chasm that had emerged. "You're going to get through this." I leaned down, grateful to the shadows that concealed the tremor in my voice. "I promise I will be right here for you. We can fight this together. You are such a strong girl," she responded weakly, seemingly grateful for the support I tried to provide. But it was my sibling who stepped in with their own gentle words, smooth as honey, rich with empathy that drew my mother's eyes again. "I am glad you're feeling better, Mom. I brought some of your favorite tea." I watched as my sibling poured the steaming liquid from a delicate cup they had fetched from the cupboard. They sat on her side of the bed, leaning in closer, whispering sweet nothings while I remained rooted against the wall, feeling smaller and less significant. Each gentle rustle of the sheets as they shifted positions felt like nails scraping against my heart. I had always been her anchor, the unstoppable wave of applause that had kept her spirit soaring. But now it was my sibling who held her hand. Even their laughter rang through the sterile room like an invisible melody that spiraled around me, and I felt out of tune, bewildered, and utterly displaced. "Mom, remember when we went on that camping trip?" my sibling said, their voice warm with nostalgia. "You said it was the best time of your life. Can we do something like that when you feel better?" I cringed at the words, feeling an invisible wall erect between us, one I could never shatter with mere memories. A lump formed in my throat, a mix of rage and despair swirling as I processed how effortlessly they pulled her into their web of warmth while I felt discarded, like a crumpled flyer tossed under the couch. I had poured every ounce of love into being the child she could always count on, yet here they were, wrapping her in soft words that crowded out my thoughts. "What about me, Mom?" I dared to speak, my voice hesitant, cracking under the weight of betrayal. "Don't you remember our times at the beach? I saved up for those new swimsuits we wore." But as I spoke the memories, the smile on her face faded slightly before my eyes, and my sibling jumped in with another laugh. "Come on, Lily. Those were great times," they replied, teasing me as if I were a petulant child. "But let's not try to overshadow this moment. We can plan a new trip after you're all better, right, Mom?" It was sunlight drowning out the moon, and I knew this moment would stretch on indefinitely. My heart raced with doubt turning fierce. I could no longer pretend, standing in the shadows of my sibling's radiance. I turned my gaze away, biting the inside of my cheek until that metallic taste mingled with burning resentment. What had I done wrong? Why was I being pushed aside? Did my mother's love eclipse mine so easily? Was my bond merely an illusion I had constructed? My mind thundered with these questions as I wrestled with the newfound instability fogging the corners of my vision. Days turned into a blur of sterile hospital smells, heartbeats punctuated by the rising tension among truths that ran deeper than skin. My mother fought as hard as she could, but it was as if each time I looked over, I found myself competing not just for her attention anymore, but for her love against an adversary I had once called my sibling. The fracture began to splinter, shaking my resolve. "I guess it is just how things go," I whispered to myself late one night, sitting by her bed, under the blinking lights illuminating the somber room. "Perhaps I have been wrong. Perhaps the moon has always overshadowed the sun." I barely opened my eyes, hoping the darkness would swallow me whole rather than face the truth of my unraveling world. But as the weeks wore on, I could no longer harbor the heavy emotions without letting them out. I wanted revenge for the invisible chains my sibling had forged between my mother and me. It was time to confront the truth I had discovered within the veil of my mother's illness. I was not just fighting for her favor. I was fighting for recognition, for love that felt like it had slipped through my fingers like grains of sand. In that moment, beneath the stark fluorescent lights of the hospital room, the seeds of a complex storm began to bloom. I yearned for the warmth that had flickered. As the ticking clock echoed through the sterile silence, I steeled my resolve. The facade of mutual love would soon be tested against the fierce tides of enmity, and I was determined to reclaim what I believed was rightfully mine the day my mother passed away left me shattered. I had seen her as my guiding light, and now it felt as though darkness enveloped me. The morning of the will reading, an oppressive heaviness hung in the air like an unwelcome cloud. The sun rose, illuminating the fading memories of her smile, but for me, the world felt muted, colors dulled. I sat alone at our dining table, a sense of dread bubbling in my gut as I recalled the last few precious moments I had spent with her. The scent of her favorite lavender perfume still lingered on the tablecloth, a bittersweet reminder of what I had lost. "Are you ready, dear?" My heart leapt at the sound of my sibling's voice. They were nervously fidgeting, their fingers twisting the hem of their shirt. I wanted to say something comforting, to bridge the chasm that had grown between us, but all I could manage was a nod, almost mechanical in its response. "Ready?" What did that even mean in a situation like this? Could I ever be ready to hear words that could determine the very fabric of our lives now that she was gone? The lawyer's office felt claustrophobic, constrained by the weight of grief that engulfed the room. I could hear the distant ticking of a clock, each tick steeping my anxiety deeper in shadows. I glanced around at the books lining the walls, their leather-bound covers collecting dust, just like I had collected emotions bottled deep within, waiting to spill over. The smell of old paper combined with polished wood within the office was suffocating, the air thick and heavy with unspoken tension. I shifted in my seat as another voice broke the silence, soft yet authoritative. Thank you all for joining me today. We are here to honor the final wishes of your beloved mother. The lawyer adjusted his glasses, his eyes glancing between us with a mixture of sympathy and professionalism. I could see the slight tremor in his hands as he reached for the envelope, the one that held the future of our lives, like an executor of fate. I will begin reading her will. In that moment, I pretended to breathe in the memories of my mother, the smell of her cooking wafting through the halls, her laughter ringing through our home like a sweet melody that drowned out any pang of sadness. But as he began to read, each word echoed ominously within me, threatening to shatter the fragile pieces of my heart. My beloved children, he began, the tremor in his voice revealing the emotional weight of those words. If you are reading this, it is because I am no longer with you. I felt the warmth of tears pricking at the corners of my eyes but blinked them away. I had to focus. I needed to hear her last thoughts, to feel them envelop me like a hug, just as she always did. I hope you carry my love with you, but then came the twist, the cruel reality that stayed hidden until now. The lawyer's voice droned on, and suddenly the tone shifted. I bequeath everything I own to my firstborn, considering the financial difficulties they currently face. This includes my residence located at 123 Maple Street and the sum of $500,000. A cold shock wave raced through me. $500,000? My sibling? What? No. The word burst forth from my lips, raw and untamed. I felt a heat rise to my cheeks, my heart racing, a frantic dance of disbelief and betrayal. The faces of relatives turned towards me, brief flickers of confusion etched across their features. I could see their eyes darting between us. I was the favored one. The words rushed out like a torrential waterfall, uncontainable. How could you do this, Mother? I thought I was invisible once, just once I needed to be seen. How could you leave everything to them? Lily, my sibling murmured, their voice strained. I didn't know, I had no idea. But the sincerity in their tone fell flat against the whirlwind of emotions spiraling within me. Financial troubles? I had no clue what that meant. I thought we were well off, that our family was solid. My mind raced, crashing waves of anger mingling with confusion, like a tempest I couldn't control. Your financial troubles? I snapped, peeling my gaze away from the lawyer, who calmly watched our exchange. What financial troubles? You've always been fine. You have a roof over your head and food on your table. God, you have everything. And yet, she leaves me nothing. My voice rose, trembling with each syllable, morphing into a fierce declaration of everything I had long buried deep. Lily, they attempted to reason, a thick tension settling between us. There must be some misunderstanding. I shook my head vehemently. No misunderstanding. Didn't you ever think I deserved more? Didn't you feel that? I spent my youth thinking she favored me. Lines of resentment and disbelief creased my thoughts as I clutched the edge of the table, grounding myself as confusion threatened to consume me. The lawyer cleared his throat. This will is final. Your mother's decision is made clear, and I have no means to alter it. All at once, everything felt unbearably surreal. Memories of tender moments spent with my mother, the bedtime stories, the warm hugs, swirled around me like ghosts. They whispered of her faith in me, the lessons she taught me about kindness and perseverance. Yet those images began to taint, revealing shadows of doubt lurking in every corner. What if it had been nothing more than a facade? Was I really the favorite child I had thought I was, or just a temporary distraction from the reality of life's burdens? Why did she never tell us about this? Why leave it until now? I directed my fury into the air, hoping it would dissipate the anguish coiling within. The tension in the room thickened, a choking grasp on my voice. I didn't want to believe she was struggling. I just assumed she was fine, my sibling stammered back, voice cracking like fragile glass. We can figure this out together. Figure this out? I repeated incredulously, the word laced with scorn. You mean like how you've always figured things out by playing the victim card, never really knowing me? The one who lived in her shadow, always holding her up. You don't get to act as if this was our choice. Each word pierced through layers of facade, laying raw the truth of our lives, a reality I had never wanted to confront. Enough, the lawyer interjected sharply, his patience waning. You can sort this out later, but for now, let's stick to the will. But I had lost all interest in anyone else's words. My mother's love felt like a pallid ghost passing through me, leaving only silence and hollow echo of betrayal. I could hardly process the seconds ticking by, yet time wrapped around me like a noose, the walls closing in, squeezing out any remnants of reconciliation. What had once felt like a familial bond now felt like shards of glass, cutting into my very spirit. I had to get out of there. My emotions threatened to consume me, the primal urge to lash out bubbling to the surface. If money and status held more weight in my mother's heart than love and sacrifices made, then I was wasting my time caring about the crumbs she had tossed my way. I stood abruptly, their startled expressions barely registering as I turned toward the door, heart thudding as it tried to reclaim my burdens in the world pouring outside. Loud footsteps followed behind me. "Wait, Lily. We can talk, we can fix this." My sibling's voice escalated, the desperation in their tone echoing my storm of emotions. But the resolve in my heart hardened. I could barely muster the conviction to turn back and face them. "Fix what?" I shot back over my shoulder. "What can you say? That everything will be fine? You will walk away with everything you want, just as you always have. You've always been the one to make the decisions, leaving me to pick up the pieces. But that ends now." I stormed out of the office, leaving behind a world of suffocating grief intertwined with jealousy, the weight of betrayal lifting my spirits, twisting them into a resolve I had never known I was capable of. As the door swung shut, I took a deep breath, the air refreshing and crisp, but still warm with something unnameable. In that moment, I knew the time for tears and silence had passed. The moment had arrived for me to reclaim my life and teach them both what it meant to truly lose everything, just as I felt I had. No longer would I be a shadow, left to dimly reflect the light of my mother that was once a beacon in my life. It was time to ignite the flames of revenge. The sting of betrayal pulsed through my veins, a fire igniting a path for me to walk, a path I would carve into their lives, step by calculated step. In the weeks following my mother's death, I fell into a pit of despair and confusion that felt like quicksand, pulling me down into darkness with every breath I took. The days blurred into a haze of gray, the edges of my reality fraying like an old tapestry. The sun would rise and set, but I hardly noticed, each passing moment merely a reminder of my loss. Conversations with family members became mumbled exchanges, and their attempts at sympathy only deepened the chasm of my grief. They would talk in hushed tones, their whispers swirling around me like a chilling breeze. I could barely make out phrases like money troubles or living above their means, and each snippet sank deeper into my gut, stirring a cocktail of emotions, confusion, sorrow, and an increasingly growing sense of betrayal. It was during these forced family dinners, where we pretended to honor our mother's memory, that I became acutely aware of my siblings' actions. I had always admired their confidence. They seemed to illuminate any room they entered. But now, that very confidence left a bitter taste in my mouth. They would talk animatedly about recent trips they had taken, about dinners at expensive restaurants where the wine flowed like water and the bill was never a concern. I watched them show off the new gadgets they had, the latest phone with a sleek design and tactics for showcasing their perfect lives splashed all over social media. Meanwhile, my own life had become a series of compromises and sacrifices. I would often find myself clutching the same worn-out purse my mother had used, my fingers tracing the edges as if seeking comfort from nostalgia. I tightened my budget, counting every dollar and feeling the weight of my financial restraints like an anchor pulling me down. "Did you see the new dress they had? So nice. What was it, $300? My aunt remarked, all smiles as she pushed a forkful of spaghetti into her mouth. I felt the heat rush to my face like an impending storm. What did that dress matter when my sibling was clearly spiraling into a financial abyss? They're living a fairy tale, I thought bitterly, unable to fathom how everyone could be so oblivious. A fairy tale that's going to come crashing down any moment. My grief had transformed into something else entirely, an unease that twisted in my stomach like a coiled snake. It was like witnessing a magician pull rabbits out of hats while knowing that the whole performance was just a clever illusion. Are they doing okay? I finally mustered the courage to ask one evening. It was dimly lit, and the family table felt like the center of a crashing ship. My voice was barely above a whisper. "I heard things have been tough." My sibling looked at me then, eyes narrowing slightly, as if gauging my sincerity. "Oh, absolutely," they responded with a forced laugh that rang hollow. You know how it is, just living life. We can't worry too much about money, right? They waved their hand dismissively, as if casting aside any concerns with a flick of their wrist. I felt the room grow colder, a chill sweeping through as family members exchanged glances laden with unspoken judgments. I was becoming the outcast, a mere shadow lurking on the fringes of my own family. I could hear the silent judgments echoing through their eyes every time I opened my mouth. The truth is, they didn't know much. I had seen the bills piling up when I cleared out our mother's things, hidden away in cluttered drawers with notices written in bold red ink: overdue, urgent, do not ignore. Discomfort washed over me like a wave. I don't think it's wise, I began, but my sibling cut me off, a sharp edge in their tone, deflecting my concern like a shield. Look, Lily, you don't need to worry about me. Just because you're tightening your own budget doesn't mean I have to. Maybe you need to learn to let loose a little. The laughter that followed was disingenuous, a mask slipping over their face. I could see through it. I could see the fear hiding behind that bravado, the ghost of their insecurity creeping into their expression. But I was too weak to confront it, my own heart heavy with grief and resentment. As the days dripped by like the remnants of storm clouds, I found myself retreating further into my thoughts, wrestling with the specter of injustice that hovered over our family. I began to imagine all sorts of scenarios, ways I could unearth the truth, expose their deceptive lifestyle to everyone. I wanted to scream, to show them how deserving I was of the attention and the legacy my mother had left behind. The unfairness of it all burned like a glaring flame inside me, igniting a plan deep in my soul, radicalizing my emotions into a fragile but determined resolve. One late afternoon, as I sat on the worn leather couch in my mother's living room, now an unsettling shrine of memories, the sunlight streaming through the leaves cast dancing patterns on the floor. I could almost hear my mother's voice echoing, as if she were warning me to be careful with my thoughts, to let go of my anger and sadness. But I couldn't. I was tired of being overshadowed, tired of feeling like last year's model pushed aside for something shinier and newer. Once, my sibling had been a source of comfort, a partner in crime, but now they felt like a stranger wrapped up in layers of deception. A dinner party, I muttered to myself as the notion solidified in my mind. Just a small get-together. I pictured my sibling walking into that space, where I would have everything ready. I will expose everything, I thought, the whisper of revenge curling around my thoughts like smoke. I set my jaw, the resolve hardening. I would invite family, provide the perfect setup with a delicious meal, and bear witness as my siblings stumbled over their lies, unraveling as the truth spilled out like wine from a cracked bottle. With each passing day, I spent time meticulously planning my game. I focused on the details, from the inviting aroma of roasted herbs wafting through the air to the delicate simmering of sauces that would coat the dishes, luring my sibling in like a baited trap. I even practiced the casual, yet pointed inflections in my voice that would deliver my carefully constructed arguments. Oh, how I would relish in the moment of revelation, the vindication in exposing the truth. The day of the dinner finally arrived, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of lavender and gold, I felt a mixture of nervous excitement and dread bubbling in my stomach. I breathed deeply, hoping to quell the fluttering in my chest. "You can do this," I whispered to myself, adjusting the edge of the tablecloth for the umpteenth time. When they finally knocked on the door, time slowed to a crawl. "Hey, what's this for?" My sibling exclaimed, their voice buoyant, a facade of joy that barely masked the tension in the air. "Just a little family gathering," I replied, feigning innocence. Inside, I felt like a ticking clock ready to explode. The warmth of the welcome felt forced, but I could handle it. I carefully arranged the gathering's mood, offering drinks and laughter while every click of the clock echoed in my mind like a countdown to my moment of truth. As everyone settled down, enjoying the first course, I observed my siblings' ever-growing bravado, the way they leaned back in their chair, hands clasped behind their head, wearing a condescending smile as if to say none of this mattered to them. But I had the power in my hands, a subtle poison in the form of knowledge ready to slip into the air. I just needed the right opening. "So, how is work going?" I asked casually, tilting my head slightly, a playful glint in my eyes, probing for a crack in their armor. "Oh, ups and downs," they replied, brushing me off as if it were an old sweater they couldn't be bothered to wear anymore. Yet I saw it, the flicker of uncertainty that darted across their expression. "But hey, let's not get bogged down in details. How's your job? Still working at that little shop?" "Very funny," I said, resisting the impulse to lash out. I love my job, thank you very much. And then, I changed tactics, observing the reactions of our family as I brought up something much more intriguing, the conversation deftly shifting towards the legacy our mother had left. You know, Mother always spoke about enjoying life within your means, I began, my voice sweet yet driven by the currents of revenge. Just the other day, I found some old documents. She was very particular about her estate planning. I locked eyes with my sibling, noting the way their confident grin faltered slightly. It's interesting how she wanted everything split evenly. Seems important, right? Silence settled over the room, and my sibling's posture stiffened. I saw their reflection in the glass of wine, twisting at the edges like a spilled thought. Yeah, well, everyone has their own ways of interpreting things, they managed, though their tone wavered as if the ground beneath them was shifting. Right, but I think maybe living like everything is fine when things are clearly not is a dangerous game, I retorted, my heart racing with anticipation. How is it that you can be so carefree when the reality is knocking at your door? I pushed the chair back slightly, my body leaning forward as if bringing the truth into focus. I don't know what you're getting at, Lily, they shot back, their eyes flashing with indignation, but I could hear the cracks forming in their bravado. The tension in the room thickened, trapping us in something palpable. Perhaps you've been hiding debts, or maybe you just enjoy flaunting the luxurious lifestyle you cannot afford? I watched as they bristled, jaws tightening like wrongly drawn swords. The eyes of our relatives flicked back and forth between us, curiosity morphing into disbelief. I had thrown my gauntlet down, the revelation that had been bubbling beneath the surface set to erupt. So what if I do? They huffed, the wind in their sails robbing them of momentum. This is not about me. This is about you not being able to let go of our mother, always trying to bring me down because I'm doing something you can't. Each word dripped with accusation, but the uncertainty lingered on their face like a smear of dirt. I could feel my heartbeat thundering in my ears, and a newfound sense of resolve crystallized within me. Is that what you think? I whispered with calm ferocity, pushing through the drawn-out silence. You think I'm trying to drag you down? I only want the truth to be seen. You're a facade, and sooner or later that facade is going to tear away, you'll see. The room erupted into chatter, family members trying half-heartedly to diffuse the rising tension. The table, once a place of connection, had become a dividing line, tearing the fragile threads of our relationship apart. I felt a rush of liberation amidst the chaos, a palpable sense of victory. My siblings' confidence waned, crumbling beneath the weight of their lies. I saw it then, the fire of betrayal ignited, propelling me toward a confrontation they had never seen coming. In that moment, I found clarity, realizing that I could no longer remain a shadow in their world. I would fight for my truth, my mother's legacy would not be sullied by their reckless abandon. The time for silence had passed. Through my pain, I would emerge, not just into darkness, but into revenge. The long-awaited family gathering was supposed to be a joyous occasion, a time for laughter, memories, and the warmth of togetherness. But as I stood just outside the door, I could feel my heart pounding against my ribcage like a wild drum, drowning out the cheerful chatter and clinking of silverware that echoed from within. This was no ordinary reunion. For me, it was a reckoning. I could no longer sit idle and watch as my sibling basked in the glow of our mother's legacy, their self-satisfied grin as deceptive as a snake hiding among the flowers. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the whirlwind that was about to unfold, and then stepped into the room. The scent of roasted chicken and garlic bread hung heavily in the air, mingling with the laughter that rang out from the dining room. As I approached the elegantly set table, a vision of familial bliss, my siblings stood in the middle of the crowd, animatedly recounting the dreams they had for their inheritance. I've got it all planned, they said, beaming as they waved a hand above their head. A new car, a vacation house, and I can finally get that nice little boat I've always wanted. Can you just imagine? I felt a tightening in my stomach, the pain of betrayal curling around my insides. All those months of pretending everything was fine, of swallowing the bitter feelings that had accumulated since our mother passed, led to this moment. It was time. Excuse me, I said, my voice slicing through the laughter like a knife. My words caught in the air, momentarily freezing the conversation. Heads turned, eyes widened in surprise, and for a split second, I caught a glimpse of confusion mixed with a hint of concern on their faces. I need to say something. What's going on? My sibling asked, their smile faltering, the confidence in their voice wavering just slightly. The room remained silent, a heavy anticipation settling in like a dense fog. I took a step closer to the table, the polished surface gleaming under the chandelier's glow. It's about the inheritance, I stated, my voice steadier than I felt inside, fueled by the pain of betrayal that coursed through me. The spending, the debts, it's time everyone knew the truth. Panic flickered in their eyes, and a flush crept up their neck as I reached into my bag and pulled out a stack of neatly organized spreadsheets. My fingers trembled as I held them aloft, showing the family the evidence of a charade I had watched unfold for far too long. I've documented everything, I continued, feeling the surge of adrenaline push me forward, my heart racing with every word I spoke. All the insane expenditures, the wild spending sprees, and the debt you've racked up while feasting on our mother's hard work. Being dramatic, my siblings started, but I cut them off, eyes locked on one of my cousins who had initially looked uneasy at the start of my confrontation. Really? Dramatic? I scoffed. When you emptied Mom's savings for that luxury car, or when you threw that extravagant party while the rest of us were mourning, you don't get to play the victim here. The murmurs around the table began to grow, my family's attention caught like moths to a flame, their faces a blend of shock and disbelief. What in the world are you talking about? My sibling said, their voice cracking slightly as they desperately tried to regain control of the situation. Those were all investments. I was managing our mother's money wisely. Wisely? I repeated, incredulous laughter bubble up from my throat. You've spent every penny like it was candy at a fair. You talk about the things you want to do, but what about everything else? You've been living too high on the hog while dragging our family's name through the mud. I flipped to a page, pointing to the figures that screamed of irresponsibility. $5,000 at that overpriced boutique, $10,000 on home renovations you never finished, and let's not forget that thousands of dollars vacation you took last year. Gasps broke out around the table, echoing in the stunned quiet that had overtaken the room. Family members exchanged glances, denial etched into some faces, while others looked like they were slowly starting to connect the dots. I noticed the furrowed brows, the pinched lips that conveyed disbelief slowly turning to realization. Is this true? One family member finally broke the silence, their tone hesitant. Did you really use Mom's money like that? Of course not, my sibling exclaimed, their voice a high-pitched whine that made my skin crawl. This is all a misunderstanding. They're just trying to make me look bad. There was desperation in their eyes, and for a moment I almost felt pity for them. Almost. This isn't a misunderstanding, I shot back, raising the spreadsheet once more, gesturing emphatically as I drew their attention back to the glaring numbers. You gave Mom's estate a bad name, you're digging a hole in the ground that would swallow all of us. A chorus of whispers filled the room, swirling around like a stormy wind. No way, really? How did this all happen? I can't believe it. The hushed tones grew louder with each passing second, a wave rising from simmering disbelief to full-blown outrage. The tension was almost palpable, crackling in the air like static electricity. My siblings' confidence shattered, their face paling as the realization sunk in. You're lying, they stammered, a pleading note in their voice that used to incite my sympathy but now only served to embolden me further. You're just trying to ruin this for me? No. I countered, fire sparking in my chest, and the stink of their dishonesty filling my nostrils like spoiled food. You've already ruined it by being selfish, by squandering everything. This was supposed to be for us all, to lift us as a family, not for you to flaunt. The eyes of our relatives shifted back to my sibling, uncertainty replacing the earlier admiration. How could you do this? One of them accused, their tone steady now, the collective strength of their disappointment striking my sibling harder than any blow. You had a chance to honor our mother's legacy, and instead, you threw it away. What do you mean, threw it away? My sibling retorted, indignation rising. This is my rightful inheritance. I have every right to— No, I shouted, my voice cracking with the intensity of my emotion. It's not just yours, you forget we had a family. We had plans to remember, to keep her spirit alive through shared dreams and hopes, not for one person to squander. And it's on your head. Every dime you've wasted takes us further away from that. I did not relent, holding my ground as I gestured to the glaring columns of excess on the spreadsheet, my heart pounding wildly as I watched the cocktail of shock and betrayal play across the faces of my family. Look at these figures. Look at what you've done. You've wrapped yourself in the illusion of wealth while trampling on our family's dreams and ruining the very essence of our bond. My sibling stood there, the facade of confidence crumbling, exposed as the truth unfolded with each passing moment. Their mouth opened and closed, as if trying to find words but only producing a garbled mess of stumbles. I just wanted to enjoy, but the truth was out now, and it was like breaking down a dam. Enjoy, I repeated, my voice now a steady roar. What you have done has been no enjoyment for us. You've spent our mother's legacy like it meant nothing. The silence was suffocating now, thick and heavy with the weight of my words. Finally, a cousin shook their head, unable to hold back any longer. You need to fix this. We trusted you. The tables had turned, and the knowledge I had carefully gathered over those months now stood at the forefront, a bulwark against my siblings' protestations. The realization sunk in, my family was no longer willing to blindly follow my siblings' charade. The facade was shattered, the mask ruined, and no charming smile could mend what had been broken. Please, my sibling finally murmured, desperation lacing their voice. You don't really think I meant to hurt anyone, do you? What you meant doesn't matter anymore, I stated, unwavering. The only thing that matters now is that you have a chance to make this right. You have the opportunity to change this narrative, to prove that our mother's legacy is worth more than a desperate attempt to buy superficial happiness. It's either that, or the family will remember this day and your folly. With those final words hanging in the air, the room fell silent again, and the reality of the situation settled over us like a thick fog. My siblings stood at the center of it all, and while they once commanded respect and admiration, they were now like a pot boiling over, their world crumbling beneath the mounting voices surrounding them as they dug their own hole. I had orchestrated the perfect confrontation, unveiling a truth I could no longer hold back. With every word spoken, it was as if I had sliced the ties that bound my sibling to their secrets, letting the haunting legacy of our mother flood into the room, forcing everyone to face what was hidden beneath the surface. I could see the truth dawning upon my family members, their expressions shifting from confusion to realization, from discontent to outrage. As I looked around at their faces, I knew I had finally struck a blow against the deceit, revealing the real leech hiding behind my siblings' smile as I stood there amidst the swirling emotions of my family. The air thick with tension, and the muted sounds of sobbing and whispered reassurances floated around me like a fog. I remember the moment vividly, the second they had all turned toward me, their expressions shifting from concern for my sibling to a fierce protectiveness toward me. It was empowering, almost electrifying, and I inhaled deeply, savoring the moment. The sun streamed through the large bay windows, casting long shadows across the wooden floor of our family home, where so many memories had been made and now shattered. What do you mean you didn't tell us? You let us all think Lily was the one? One of my aunts cried, her voice breaking through the tension. I couldn't help but feel a rush of gratitude wash over me as I caught the determination in her eyes. She had always been one of the fiercest defenders of family honor. It was never supposed to be like this, my siblings shouted, their voice filled with desperation. I thought I could handle it myself. Handle what? Lying to us, keeping secrets? I shot back, my voice calm but laced with a sharp edge. I could feel the blood rushing to my cheeks. The heat of the moment only fueled my sense of rejuvenation. Each word, each accusation felt like a step toward reclaiming not only my rightful place in our family, but also the dignity I thought I'd lost. The betrayal they had committed against me had almost suffocated me, but now I could breathe, even as I craved more air to voice my truth. I never wanted to hurt you, Lily. I thought I was protecting you. My sibling continued, their voice strained, practically begging for pity, but I was beyond that now. No, you thought you could protect your own image. You thought you could keep all this to yourself and twist us into believing you were the good one. My heart raced, fueled by a whirlwind of emotions, each one more powerful than the last. I felt myself rise, taller and more resolute than ever before. Shadows of doubt that had plagued me for years were vanishing with every interaction happening right before my eyes. Family members were gathering closer, an unspoken unity forming around me, and just the sight of my grandmother's comforting smile anchored me. She stepped forward, her presence serene amidst the chaos. Lily, honey, do you remember the times when we used to sit under the big oak tree and talk about our dreams? You always spoke with such passion. Don't let someone dim your light. Her voice was soft, but there was a steeliness in her tone that I found immensely comforting. I nodded, recalling those moments vividly. The oak tree had been our family's refuge, where we shared laughter, secrets, and dreams. I remember, Grandma, I just thought. I trailed off, feeling the dam of emotions inside me threaten to overflow. Thought what? That you were too weak to stand up for yourself, that you didn't deserve to be treated well. Love is not measured by who thinks they are the favorite. It is shown in the actions of those around us, she said strongly, her eyes bright with defiance. I took a breath, letting her words seep into my very bones. Yes, love was not something you could hoard like prized possessions or flaunt like golden jewelry. It was woven into the very fabric of our lives, tempered by trials and hardships, and now it radiated back toward me as if the universe itself was correcting its course. Maybe it was a mistake to keep things a secret from everyone, but I only wanted what was best for the family. My sibling was stumbling over words as they attempted to piece together a defense, but I could see cracks beginning to form in their false image. My family's affirmations surrounded me, lifting me up, and with each passing moment, the smoke and mirrors of deceit began to dissipate. Best for the family, by lying and manipulating, by claiming everything for yourself. My voice was steady now, confident. I felt as if every accusation was like a prayer unleashed into the universe, and suddenly the tables had turned. Lily, please. My sibling's plea broke my heart, but only slightly. We could fix this. We could just let it go, right? Oh, I have let it go, I said, crossing my arms over my chest, feeling powerful in this moment. I have let go of the anger, of the bitterness, but you will have to face the truth. The reality rested starkly between us. They had hurt me, and now those actions came to light, no matter how hard they tried to retreat back into shadows and hide from the consequences of their choices. I won't let you take everything from me, not after this. Their desperation clawed at the edges of their voice, and fury flashed in their eyes. I could see their masks slipping, fractures appearing as my family rallied around me like a fortress. They will see you for who you are, and I hope you realize what you have lost. It's not about the inheritance anymore. It's about the love we built together, and you chose to tread on that love. My words hung heavy in the air. Each syllable contained the weight of 1,000 memories and unspoken dreams. You cannot pick and choose who is deserving, nor can you ever assume that your lies will hold forever. You don't know what it's like. You don't know. My siblings' words echoed the panic and desperation, but confirmed all I needed to know. Try me, I replied, a slight smile teasing at the corner of my lips. The sheer confidence that surged through me was almost alien, but I could hardly remember a time when I had felt stronger. It's only a matter of time before you realize you're outnumbered here, they said, but you could hear the tremor, the doubt shaking their foundation. I was reclaiming my place not through threats, but through the undeniable truth manifested around me. Outnumbered? I shook my head, glancing at my family, their faces softening with understanding, compassion radiating outwards. I am surrounded by love, and love is the most powerful force there is. My voice was a steady balm, sinking deep into the tension-filled air, quenching the chaotic flames swirling around us. I deliberately looked to each of my family members, their faces painted with understanding, some nodding, others swiping at the tears cascading down their cheeks. The soft clink of a teacup breaking the silence from across the room caught my attention. I turned my gaze to the corner where my mother stood, the quiet matriarch of our family whose strength I pulled from every day. You anchored us, Lily, she said softly, arms folded, her fingers trembling ever so slightly. We did not see how you were suffering. I thought love was formed through hard work and sacrifice, but I see now it was also in honesty and trust. She stepped forward, holding my gaze, eyes glistening with unshed gratitude. It is in moments like this we recognize the truth, but I was too blind to see. Her voice cracked as she spoke, and I saw something shift in her demeanor. She was stepping beyond her comfort zone, stepping into the light of the truth we all now stood in. A ripple of movement stirred among my family, silencing my siblings' protests. We must acknowledge this situation fully, my aunt chimed in, her tone now resolute. No more silence, no more putting on false faces. This is about us, all of us. And just like that, visible cracks began to spread through my siblings' carefully crafted facade. I smiled, feeling an exhilarating shift in the air. It won't matter where the family heirlooms end up. What matters is that we are together, and now it is time for all of us to heal, to reclaim not just what we lost, but who we really are. The air hummed with the gathered emotions, fear, regret, love, and hope. I was no longer rebounding from hardship. I was standing solidly on the foundation that my family was building around me, brick by brick. I am ready to move forward even if you are not, I declared, feeling the warmth of my family wash over me like a comforting blanket. Today marks the end of a chapter, and I refuse to let it dictate my future. We can build something stronger, a family without secrets and without manipulation. We will stand together through this, won't we? My mother added, a light sparking in her eyes as she reached for my hand. My family rallied around me, drawing closer, and for the first time I felt surrounded not by chaos but by love. It was all falling into place, piece by piece. The fate of my siblings' choices laid bare before them, and for a fleeting moment, it felt almost bittersweet to watch them unravel, but deep inside I understood. It was necessary. This was my moment of empowerment, a moment to reclaim pieces of myself that had been cracked and fractured for too long. As I faced my sibling, I finally felt a wave of calm wash over me. You will have to live with your choices, and I will not be holding on to the bitterness, but I will not pretend to be unaware of what is true, I stated, my voice deeper, steadier. In that moment, perhaps for the first time, I saw the reflection of someone strong in the mirror looking back at me. They were clutching at straws, just as I had done for too long, and in their desperate attempts to reclaim the spotlight, they had inadvertently illuminated me. I marveled in strange satisfaction at how every whispered accusation had become a powerful affirmation of my worth. It felt as if the universe had conspired to guide me to this moment, where I finally stood in my own light, savoring the taste of victory not over my sibling, but for myself. I had reclaimed my worth from the ashes of our past, transforming pain into strength, and what remained was beautiful. I could almost hear the echoes of our shared laughter, the stories yet to be crafted, growing stronger in the wake of this new direction. Life may have taken a detour, but it has led us back home, I whispered, casting my gaze toward my family, warmed by their understanding, fortified by our shared resilience. It was a fierce reclamation of our history, a promise echoing through the room as we stood united against uncertainty. In the end, the stories we weave within this tapestry of life are not just strands of deceit, but threads of love that flourish in the light of honesty. As I held onto my family, I knew our bond would grow ever stronger, flourished in the embrace of truth, the sweet taste of victory marking the chapters yet to be explored, writing a legacy anew.